SMTN.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 373. Sorry for the delay. I'm your host, Spencer Presley. It's been almost 2 weeks, or I guess by the time you guys hear this, just about 2 weeks since our last episode. June has been an absolutely insane month. Before we get too far into the show, want to let you all know it's going to be a little bit of a shorter one. There's been too much to play, like literally too many games. And we've had Raidou Remastered come out, we have had Persona 5 X come out, and we've got Anime Expo in just a few days. We are drowning in news, concerts getting announced left and right, so many different topics, a bunch of different things I want to talk about, but due to a couple of scheduling things, I am doing the show solo this week. By the way, my name is Spencer Presley. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm just going to kind of treat this episode as part impressions on Raidou Remastered as well as Persona 5X, which I will now be calling P5X because those are all too many words. Talk about what I've been up to and answer some questions that you all have. So, alright, first up, I just want to say thank you all so much who have recently been supporting the YouTube channel. I've been doing a bunch of videos covering not only the Nintendo Switch 2, but also, more importantly, seeing how each and every Atlus developed game has been running on the system, even though, joke's on me, none of them got patched. I have been absolutely blown away by how much people have been enjoying checking them out. Obviously, I knew stuff big like Persona 5 Royal was going to be something that catches a lot of people's attention. I did a similar thing with Persona 5 and a bunch of Atlus games when the PS5 came out. But with the Switch, I've been doing it a little bit different and a little bit kind of, I don't know, just like, yeah, it's like, it is, on one hand, definitely just me recording myself playing the Nintendo Switch 2 and talking on the carpet. The other hand, it is kind of fun I like doing these sort of live commentaries, shorter form videos, easier for me to get up, nice for me to sort of pace them out. And the fact that you guys have been enjoying them, the SMT5 one has been pretty well received, and the fact that more than 5 people watched me talk about Tokyo Mirage Sessions in 2025 is absolutely wild. The only games left, ironically, at this point for me to cover are Persona 4 Arena Ultimax and Nocturne HD. So we talked about Raidou 2, TOO, not Raidou 2, and it's been very fun covering this for the channel, even though, ironically, I've played probably more old games than new games on the Switch, even though most of my time is actually being spent on the PS5. So, I'm going to talk about a couple of different games, but in case you're wondering why I probably don't have more to say about something like a Raidou Remastered compared to like P5X, basically, before the Switch came out, I was wrapping up Clair Obscura. I was thinking I might be able to get the Platinum, but it was going to be a little too grind heavy, and I knew one of the big things I wanted to do before the end of June because of Death Stranding 2, I was like, okay, I need to finally do a full playthrough of Death Stranding Director's Cut. Because I'd played through the original game all the way back in 2019, and that is not a short game, and not one that you want to rush, especially because of how many years it's been since I played that one. I was like, okay, let's do Death Stranding, hopefully before Raidou comes out. Failed spectacularly. The game is very long. I'm almost done with Death Stranding 1, and I have played a good chunk of Raidou Remastered, but definitely not a ton. Thankfully, Raidou 1 is a really short game, and when I say really short, I mean short in the Atlus sense of things. It's not 50 plus hours, it is well below 50. So I've played a decent amount on PS5, more than I would have thought on Switch 2, just from doing that video. I got the Switch 2 version of the game about a week after the PS5 copy, and ended up messing around with it for comparisons a little bit more than I expected. But very happy to report back the Switch 2 version of Raidou, game keycard aside, is an absolutely amazing version of that game. That is straight up just the PS5 version in the palm of your hands. It looks great, runs great, and could not be happier with that thing outside of the fact that it is a game key card. So where does that leave me right now? So basically right now, I am wrapping up my playthrough of Death Stranding 1. I should be done with that this week as long as nothing crazy happens. Another thing that kind of slowed me down was I had my big trip to Seattle earlier this month, and then we've had more family coming in town for 4th of July weekend. So, been busy with family stuff along with work, bills, all the other fun stuff like that. So, haven't been able to just know life and play video games nonstop. But Death Stranding, I'm really close to rolling credits on that, and then even though I bought Death Stranding 2, I will be a very good boy. I have my copy bought. Kojima got my money, unsurprisingly. So I will play Raidou Remastered, get my coverage of that rolling, and get to work. I have at least two more videos on Raidou I want to talk about for Raidou Remastered, maybe three. There's one I don't necessarily need to kind of wait on, but we'll be talking about that more in the news regarding sales. But I'm gonna play Raidou Remastered and then just fully no life myself into Death Stranding 2, because I also feel like by the time I beat Death Stranding 1 Director's Cut, I'll have been playing that for like 30 to 40 hours, and just jumping right back into Man Walks with Baby, the video game, too. I don't want to get burnt out. I don't think I would get burnt out, but I feel pretty confident it should be fine. And while I'm doing all of that, I'm also juggling Baby's first gacha game with P5X. I've messed with plenty of other gacha games. I've played stuff like Honkai, which is probably the best comparison to P5X. And man, we're going to get into it a little bit with P5X talk as well, but that thing's got its hooks in me. I don't know how long it will. Definitely doesn't have its hooks in my wallet. But yeah, P5X is a strange creature. But that's the current what's going on with what I'm playing currently. I want to go through some news highlights really quick. Obviously, Anime Expo, like I said, is happening here in the States. There's a ton of exclusive merch. There'll be a P5X concert. There's a whole booth dedicated to it. Weirdly, unless they're just keeping it secret, there is like no there is no P5X merch on sale at Anime Expo. Sega and Atlus are even doing like a pop-up shop in Little Akihabara in LA. No P5X merch there as well. I don't know what's up with that in terms of like why we're kind of splitting down, but hey, whatever. Beggars can't be choosers. Anime Expo though, very excited to see if anything comes out of it or what people think about it. Even more bummed that I will not be there, but especially with how crazy June has been, I cannot imagine trying to juggle a trip to LA this year. So probably ended up being a little bit of a blessing in disguise. And what's funny is you would think after Persona 4 Revival getting announced at the Xbox show a couple weeks back would be like, oh, there's probably not going to be a lot of news. We've had a lot of like non no, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. We've had a lot of surprisingly steady, interesting news. Obviously, I can talk about stuff like, oh, which character is coming to the Chinese version of P5X next, or like talk about the McFarlane Toys version of the P3R figure, which, hey, that actually does look kind of cool. Other little things too, like, hey, Persona 5 doing another live concert. They're doing a big band concert in Japan. Cool, good for you. We're all very happy. But you know me. I'm a big nerd. I like my numbers. I like my like my getting nerdy with it, analytics, stuff like that. Talking about sales numbers. And Sega Sammy and Atlus had a big investors meeting, and they were like, "Guys, we haven't leaked anything in a while. Like we've had a surprisingly tight ship recently. What can we do to fix that?" And to which they said, "Don't worry, bro. I got you covered. Let's leak some sales numbers. To which, of course, they were like, sweet, thank you. You got us covered. Now, what was weird about this was their financial report, and maybe this is just because these were some bigger titles. Obviously, they're not going to tell us that Soul Hackers 2 sold 17 copies, and they're just mostly focusing on the big boys like a dragon. Even that, they're not like showing all the game numbers. Like, we didn't see how Ishin sold, we didn't see how Lost Judgment sold, but we did find out like how did Yakuza 7 sell, Yakuza 8, Pirate Yakuza. Actually, no, Pirate Yakuza was not included, but the man who erased his name was included. Bunch of other stuff. But for Atlus, we have a couple of interesting inclusions. We've got Persona 3 Reload. We've got Persona 5 Royal, including the remastered version, specifically Royal, not OG, because we know OG Persona 5 has sold more than the number I'm going to be saying later. And then SMT5, which does include Vengeance. Why did they separate it like that? I don't know, because they could have just made the version of Persona 5 be an even higher number. I don't know if it's because most of Persona 5 sales came through Royal. It's very weird the way they have this split up. But uh, let's go through these numbers really quick because I think they are interesting. I think people on Twitter like to pit SMT and Persona against each other in really dumb ways of, oh, this sold better than this, so this sucks, or this sold worse than that, so what does that mean for this series? Blah, 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 blah. So, speaking of things that were actually not included here, that is very weird. Metaphor sales are not in there, even though we know the game sold over 2 million units. Almost kind of attesting to the fact of like maybe this was like an incomplete thing that was included because like this wasn't even like info that was presented to us in a public facing way. This was basically just a slide with this sales information was included mistakenly. So it could even be something like these aren't even the most up to date numbers for everything, or why some series are missing over others. Like I said, base Persona 5 has also sold millions of copies. Metaphor has sold millions of copies. Very, very weird. They include a bunch of Sonic games, but they don't include other things that have also sold millions upon millions. Really, really weird. Persona 3 Reload, though, that is our first big one. That came out at the beginning of February in 2024, and that sold from then all the way till now with the new fiscal year over 2 million copies, like just over 2.07. And what I think is really funny, a lot of people were taken aback by how much sales dropped off for Persona 3 Reload as well as Yakuza 8. And a big one for those were like the fastest that series had ever sold a million for each, even though both of those games came out within a week of each other. And I think both of those games had really, really strong, powerful starts, but unlike Metaphor, the momentum was just not there for the conversation on either of those games. And it wasn't due to anything in terms of their quality. Say what you will about Persona 3 Reload or Yakuza 8. It's just one of those things of Metaphor just hit the floor running before release, during release, and well after into award season that just kept it in everyone's mouths for a long, long time. And again, no slack on P3R. Selling over a million copies in your first month is absolutely great, and then almost selling double over the next couple of months is really, really well done. But when you compare it to something like Persona 5 Royal, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, Persona 5 peaks a little bit, but then has one-upped itself 3 times based on its release year. So just put this into perspective, because we have 5 years to compare Persona 5 Royal sales, at least in terms of the West. We have Persona 5 Royal released in 2020 with a million sales. Really, really good, really, really strong start. 2020 was a complicated year to release that game, but I think it is hard to deny the fact that P5R was a big proponent of people staying at home playing games. That released so close to lockdown with COVID. It is undeniable that a lot of word of mouth sold a lot of copies for that game. Now, as we talked about with P3R, quickly fell off over the next 2 years. 2021, around 700,000 units. 2022, 350,000 units. Again, at this point, it's a PS4 game. It's dirt cheap. People are playing new stuff. We're moving on. We're playing Strikers, blah, 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 blah. By the way, where's my Striker sales? And you go to 2023 when the remastered versions come out on PS5, Switch, Xbox, and PC. 1.82 million. Huge, 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 huge numbers right there. Through that whole year, like having a full fiscal year of sales, selling almost double of what you did on your launch year when you were a system exclusive, absolutely crushing it. The next year after that, 2024 fiscal year, 1.6 million, barely making much. And I'm sure a lot of that is Steam sales, other sales. Obviously, Persona 5 Royal, if you're paying $60 for that game in 2023, let alone 2025, you're getting hosed. Like, that game goes on sale all the time, but even at $20 a pop, $1.5 million, $1.3 million, really good. Last fiscal year, 25, they had 1.75 million copies on all these platforms. So P5R, over 7 million copies in just about 5 years is insane. Like, insanity levels of good sales. So when you're ever thinking to yourself, hey, isn't it kind of silly that Persona 5 X is finally coming out? And I mean, hey, I'm one of those proponents that I think that game took way too long from announcement to release in terms of finally coming out. I think that took way, 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 way too long. You look at these sales numbers, clearly it makes sense why they've been putting so much money into this game. And we don't have any hard numbers about how much money the game is making, obviously, because P5X is free to play, but the power of Persona 5, even in 2025, almost a 10-year-old game, is absolutely astonishing. Now, last but not least, we've got SMT5. This one is super interesting. So, fiscal year of 2022, the first full year after the game came out, from launch to the end of it, was just shy under a million copies, which honestly I think is really good. 990,000 on just the Nintendo Switch. Really, really strong sales. Really pushed hard from launch to get there. Fell off. And I mean, like, when I mean fell off hard over the next year, and especially the year under it. Like, a 90% loss year over year. To the point where it's like, holy shit, yeah, no wonder why they were like, okay, if we're releasing Vengeance, we're going big. And thank God it actually paid off for them, because 2023, the year after, 150K. Going from 900, like almost a million, to 150 is a big drop off. But again, these games get cheap. These games have a lot of stuff going on. Makes a lot of sense. All right, so if that wasn't crazy enough, going from 990 to 150, the next fiscal year, 10,000 copies. That's including physical, digital, everything, only on the Switch. That's like full on. No wonder I was seeing this game being sold at places brand new for like $10. Like, when you talk about how the game normally falls off pretty quickly, this is the sort of sale numbers they don't want you to see. And I think they really only included it in this slide to really show how impressive Vengeance was for a honestly not that expensive of a enhanced edition game, to really do a good job at bumping up SMT in general, being a lot more mainstream for a title. And with Vengeance, we saw a release on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series S, Nintendo Switch again, and PC, over 5 different platforms, and 5 of those all being new, almost selling a million units. So SMT5 Vanilla did sell better over the first year of its release on just the Nintendo Switch, but for a enhanced re-release multi-platform multiple years later, selling almost a million as well in its first year, very close to launch, by the way. And now SMT5 in general being a 2+ million seller, it at this point has sold more than Persona 3 Reload, a game that definitely had a lot higher of a budget and a lot more development time than SMT5 Vengeance. Now again, Are we including the dev time from normal SMT5? No, I think in general SMT5 was a more expensive game to make, which then just leads to the point of like, yeah, why fight about which one's doing better? What does this mean for one community versus the other? I look at this as a celebration of like, hey, P3R sold really, really well, really, really fast. Yeah, it didn't have the legs of Persona 5 Royal, but for a remake of an old PS2 game, that did really well. Obviously, well enough to now we're seeing it again with Persona 4 Revival. And for SMT5, it's awesome to see that the game launched that strong and could continue that strength all the way up with Vengeance. A lot of factors that went into it, but all these numbers are super, super good. I think it's important, though, to remind yourself of the numbers that are not included here. Because I love a lot of these games, but when companies like this specifically don't mention specific sales numbers, it's a good sign these games sold like absolute dog shit. In Japan, Nocturne HD sold very, very well. 100 plus thousand copies. By comparison, in the West, you almost never heard any hard sales. That game dropped in price crazy fast, and financially definitely had to be a bomb. Worldwide, it made its money back, hence why we saw Raidou Remastered. But look at something like Strikers. In Japan, that did pretty good. That was another game dropped crazy fast here in the West. Another game you could get crazy cheap, along with Soul Hackers 2, Persona 5 Tactica. All these games that I really, really enjoyed, and I know a lot of people listening to this also really liked, but we have to be honest with ourselves, they're not these big hit sellers. So, like, I think if you're comparing something like an SMT5 Vengeance and pitting it against a Persona 5 Tactica, it's like, yeah, like, they are in such different leagues with one another from development time, budget, sales reception, critically, commercially. It's just crazy out there. Now, I'm sure something like, I would say probably the worst selling of all those has to be Tactica. Even something like that, I'm sure it still made its money back. It wasn't like it was a complete failure, and I think the multi-platform approach for all of those definitely did help in the long run. The one I will keep always going back to, I really don't know why they still haven't ported or just let Koei Tecmo put out the version on Xbox, and hell, you could even do a Switch 2 patch at this point for Persona 5 Strikers, because, like, there's so much money left on the table there. Oh, also, shout out to the 17 copies of Ultimax that got on Steam, PS4, and Switch 1. Now, speaking of sales, we have some interesting sales notes. I've done some research myself for Raidou Remastered. I have been really loving the game. I've been really enjoying how much everyone has been talking about it. And as I mentioned, this was a big moment for this game because this was clearly more work than compared with Nocturne HD. They did a lot of hard work bringing elements from the newer games, Raidou 2, and just overall changing how the game looked visually for a modern audience. And for my opinion, I think absolutely nailed it. Unfortunately, it does not look like that has reflected in good sales. Now, in Japan, where this game has had definitely the most attention out of all other countries, we have their first week release notes, and that would be just about 500,000 copies. So we've got 4 platforms in Japan physically. This is just counting physically. This is not digital sales. But I'll talk a little bit about digital sales and marking for different regions after this. So in Japan, we found out the game sold just shy over 50,000 copies, which is not terrible, but also not great. And in Japan, best-selling version was 21,000 copies on Nintendo Switch 1, just shy under 20,000 copies on PS5, which for a PS5 game, very, very good and interesting to see. Switch 2, just shy under 6,000. So the drop off there is really, really strong, to the point where the PS4 version, which we didn't even get over here physically outside of Limited Run, that only sold 5,000 copies. So sales definitely split between PS5 and Nintendo Switch owners. I think that's pretty much the case in most places, not even just Japan. But Switch 2, I really thought would be a bigger boon to sales than anything else, just because, like, The system is new. This is a lot more of an exciting game to play than something like a Yakuza 0 Director's Cut because this is a much older game. This has a lot more new going for it. It looks great. It runs great. It's at a discounted price. It's cheaper than almost any other game out there. Like, really, the only negative going for Raidou Remastered on Switch 2 is the game key card. But you also have to remember people have just paid almost $500 for this new piece of hardware. Even with it being discounted, people are still probably happy playing Cyberpunk, still probably happy playing Mario Kart. And even though it came out 2 weeks after launch, numbers this soft, I'm like, I don't know if it launched with the system, if it would have done much better. Especially just because, and there was a decent amount of advertising. I thought it has to do at least as good as Nocturne HD. In my brain, I was like, I just don't know how it doesn't do as well as this. And it was mostly kind of coming down to the fact that I was like, okay, if Nocturne HD can sell almost 100,000 copies in its first week in Japan, and being a pretty piss poor remaster, something like this has to really go a lot farther. And that is unfortunately definitely not the case. So, like I said, Nocturne HD in Japan sold over 100,000 copies, literally double of what this game did 5 years ago in Japan. That came out October in 2020 in Japan and late May for us in the West. And it's just like, I wish I could pick people's brains. It's just so hard. Like, the landscape is so different now. Like, obviously, overall quality, most people are going to agree that Raidou Remastered is a better remaster, even if you don't think it's a better game. I think, just technically speaking, it is a much better ported remaster of a game than Nocturne was. But the sales are softer. It was on PC. Absolutely abysmal PC numbers. Like, only really matched up there with games like Persona 5 Tactica or a bunch of like other ones, because like Atlus has had crazy big concurrence on Steam for some of their games like Persona 4, Persona 5, Metaphor obviously, and this one launching with almost no competition on Steam just couldn't catch any attention. On the Nintendo Switch 2, I like checked every day in every country, never once in the West got in the top 15. Now, because there's not as many native Switch 2 games, Nintendo doesn't have as long of a list. I'm sure it was in the top 50, but that's probably because there's 50 games on the Nintendo Switch if you're including all the eShop stuff. So Nintendo for the Switch 2 eShop sales only show top 15. So it was so depressing that Raidou Remastered never charted in Australia, Europe, or America. It charted in Japan, but not for very long, and fell off and has fallen off pretty quickly. But it's just like Japan is where this is selling the best. So like physical copies did pretty good in Japan. At release, it was the second most popular game on PS5 for Amazon Japan, only beat by Death Stranding 2. And it's just like, it's such a bummer because like this game, from my opinion, has done so well in terms of improving on the overall experience of playing Raidou 1, and the sales are just not going to be there to really justify a sequel, to the point where it's like, unless they made this comedically cheap. Like, the reviews are fine, by the way. Like, it's got a pretty solid, like, it's got a better Metacritic average than Nocturne HD, but it's still in the like high 70s to low 80s for most Western review scores. So we're in this weird spot where it's like, okay, was it because it was Raidou? Would DDS have sold better? Are people not in the mood for an action RPG like this? Again, it's not like there were too many games coming out. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of games, but there's not a game like Raidou right now. There's like, it's not a Souls-like. It's not a super heavy, like, depressing third-person action shooter, whatever. Like, Raidou is a very unique and I think easy sale to new Atlus fans who give it a chance. So, if you're listening to this or watching on YouTube, please comment. Like, let me know, what do you think? Like, why did Raidou sell so soft? Because, like, genuinely, with numbers like this, I don't know how you justify remastering Part 2 without just the fact that obviously it's going to be a way cheaper remaster than 1 because 1 had to have a lot more work put into it. So I would hate to see all this work kind of just be put into a one and done. But again, at the end of the day, like, this isn't a charity. I can't blame them. Like, if you look at these numbers, like, we didn't get fucking Soul Hackers 2 on Switch, and that's a pretty low bar for where can we get some more games put on. We're in the Soul Hackers 2 territory. Like, this sold in that range, which is not good, unfortunately. Hell, Soul Hackers 2 sold better at launch on PS4 alone. Soul Hackers 2 at launch sold over like 100,000 copies worldwide. This one, I would be shocked if it has sold at least 100,000 copies worldwide. And that's like being the most generous. Like, physical copies are not hard to find. It was put out on every platform imaginable. And if I'm being honest with you, I think if you're a fan and you want more of this, you should buy this game, tell your friends to check it out. But with how much stuff is out right now and how much people are just drowning in good games to play, at the same time, I'm also like, yeah, by September, I bet you this game is at least half off. I bet you can buy this game brand new for like $25 by the end of the year. And that sucks. Because like, you don't want that to be the case, but I've said it before with almost every game that was like that. Strikers, Tactica, Soul Hackers, Nocturne HD. I didn't even buy Nocturne HD at launch. I had my review code, and I was like, I thought Nocturne HD was so underwhelming. I didn't even think it was worth buying to like send a message to them in the West until that game was at least over half off. And now they've come back with a game that was well deserving of $50. I think it is well within its right to be a $50 game. It's got some stupid DLC, but not enough to make it sell this poorly. So I really need to know, like, what happened to make Raidou sell this soft. I'm just so perplexed by it. Quick little heads up for my thoughts. I've talked a lot longer on this than I thought I would because I'm trying to keep this to about an hour. But for Raidou, I am enjoying it a lot. I am on the second episode. There are multiple episodes. I probably have only played the game for about maybe 3 to 5 hours. And definitely want to put more time into it, but technically, I've had no issues on both PlayStation 5 and Switch 2. Really nice 60 FPS. The camera stuff has not annoyed me as much as some people have talked about it. I think the voice acting has to be one of my favorite things next to the gameplay. I think the battle system is a lot more enjoyable, as well as like having that second demon in the gameplay. It's like it is one of those things that once you played that in Raidou 2, it made going back to Raidou 1 just absolutely terrible. Well, I shouldn't say terrible. A lot worse by comparison, but having those features in Remastered goes so far. The new demons are really nice to see, and just, seriously, my hat is off to the entire Cup of Tea production who did the voice acting. There is so much voice acting in this game. It is an absolute delight. Obviously, not everything is voice acted, but by Atlus standards, and especially by their last HD remaster where they did voice acting, like, there were literally moments when I would play Nocturne where I would forget the game had voice acting. It would go silent that long. Super happy with how it is done in terms of playing it. Super depressing with how bad it has sold worldwide. That one, again, please, let me know what you think. What's the reason? I wish I could blame P5X, but P5X is such a different experience, and it's a free game. Like, I saw people comparing the Steam numbers of Persona 5X versus Raidou because they're both on PC. And even though P5X is only on mobile and PC, it's like, yeah, one's free. The barrier of entry is press the download button for P5X. Like, it's not fair at all to compare that to a completely different genre and a completely different price range and ecosystem than a free-to-play gacha game. Now, moving into P5X, like I said, I am familiar with the genre. I have been following since the initial tease by Perfect World forever ago. Back when I'd have to like watch that trailer because like I know that character, or at least I think that character is in the game as one of the Phantom Idols from that teaser trailer forever ago for P5X. But I I am surprised by it. I wouldn't say like I love it, but I am playing it every day. I've played it for about, I guess I'm on day 7 at this point, and I'm not marathoning it. I don't have a job where I can really just like play this in the background. I have a pretty busy thing. I'm never commuting in a way that I have like a phone. I'm always driving. But it's a thing that like I do log on when I have a few minutes, either if I'm on a break or a lunch. I'll check it out at night, do some missions, and I will say the economy takes surprisingly long to unlock. It clearly had a lot of influence by Atlus, much like with Persona 4 Dancing, of like, hey, if you're a Persona game, you have to have a fuck ton of story. And boy, does this game live up to it. And you may love the story, you may hate the story, you may be memeing on the Subway Slammer as everyone has been. By the way, I don't know how all of you out there, the Lucky Slimes, all the people in Korea and China playing this game before, I don't know why you guys were sleeping on this Subway Slammer. He's going to be the fucking best meme of the next week. I'm sure he'll fall off a cliff very shortly, but all of the memes about the Subway Slammer have been absolutely insane, and I am here for it. I will do my best to add to that discourse in the worst way possible. But I think the story is interesting. It is very much P5, the adaptation. I think it's trying to do some interesting meta things of like comparing the parallel world of you versus the other Phantom Thieves. I will say I was like, how am I going to care about these characters when I'm also supposed to be pulling them constantly? Because the cast of Phantom Thieves is much larger in this game, and what they do is really interesting. Of the game, and I don't even know if like I like this, but like I wasn't turned off by it like I thought I would. The game at multiple times when starting it will be like, you can now pull for Phantom Thieves. If you would like to start pulling, you can, but you might want to wait till later because there's a moment like where the game will let you start pulling, but it is a little bit early before it's like introduced to you officially in the story, which I find interesting in the sense of like, okay, well, it's nice that you can just kind of get started if you want to start pulling. There's really no benefit to it that early because the game tutorializes a large amount, and the order it tutorializes almost makes like no sense in some ways. Like they lock the gun until you've already gotten your third party member, most likely fourth party member, and you've already started doing pulls, you've already started getting equipment, and you don't unlock the gun until like I was 20. I was level 20 when I finally was allowed to use the gun in story missions. And it was like they weren't hiding other abilities. Like we had other skills, we were upgrading things, we were upgrading personas, we were getting like demons. It was very strange how things are rolled out, but I think once you finally have them all, such as like getting your daily life, going to school, going to do your part-time job, or if you're going to the movies, or how you spend time with people for social links, in a calendarless calendar system, it's handled a lot better than I would have ever expected. And what I mean by that is like, I like that there is no hard rush for anything. Like, there's not, like, you're always going through morning, afternoon, night, and then evening. And what's interesting about it is, like, yes, all of those are there, but because you're not stuck to, oh, you have to do this by January, or you have to do this before April gets too late, or blah, blah, blah. What's cool about it is, especially for a mobile game, it makes all the social stuff really kind of feel like, okay, do it when you need to or do it when you want to, but never feel like you have to. Like if you want to just marathon a bunch of the, like fights in the Velvet Room trials, or if you want to do Metaverse or go through palaces, That's really, really interesting. And even with how content light it is in the grand scheme of things for story, I think everything else that's there has more than enough to keep you busy as we're slowly getting updated to be caught up with worldwide, which I'm sure is the plan by like next year, probably. The base game right now has one complete first palace, and then about half of the second palace, or at least all the way up to the second boss. And I'm about halfway through the first palace now. I've unlocked just about everything, unless anything major is unlocked after the boss. I've done the Thieves' Den. By the way, please unlock Tycoon as quickly as possible. Why else is this game on my phone? Oh, how does this run? I've been playing this on my phone, by the way. I did a launch day live stream. Shout out to all of you who watched that. Shockingly, that did not blow up. I streamed that directly from my phone to YouTube and did not horrifically scar me. That was nice. The game runs absolutely fantastic on my iPhone 16e, so I just got that recently, and I can run that at completely maxed out settings. It should run on most hardware. I've seen it running on potato phones all the way down to like I think the oldest I've seen is an iPhone 12. Android, best of luck. That's all I can tell you. Do your best. In terms of PC, I've seen some stuff. I know that it is hilariously large in terms of its files. Like file size on iPhone, it was like 13 gigs, which, to be fair, I upgraded my storage and I almost play no other mobile games, so 13 gigs for me was not that big of a deal. I don't know how that compares to like other similarly sized games. Like I have stuff like Ever Crisis, but I don't even think Ever Crisis is as big as P5X. I'll be curious to see how the file sizes kind of continue as things go on. But there's just a lot of different aspects to really go at. But like for the story, it is nothing that's going to be like groundbreaking or life changing for Persona storytelling. But it's not insulting. I think it's interesting. I'm actually liking the new cast of characters way more than I ever thought I would. Like, if you're the kind of person who is going to fall in love with the Phantom Thieves, I don't see any reason why you're not going to like this new cast of characters because even though obviously they're going to have some similarities with other characters either you've seen in anime or even in other Persona games, they're just unique enough that like they don't feel like carbon copies. Like it doesn't feel like the owl character is just another Morgana. Hell, the mascot character in this game is a better mascot character than Morgana in my opinion. So I like some characters better than others in the base P5 cast. Other weird things that are going on. I don't know if it's just me because I'm a vanilla like. I think Joker is like such a plain Jane dude. Like I don't know. Like him as like the big month long banner is such a funny thing for me because it's like who's like oh man I don't know what I'm gonna do if I can't play it with Joker. Cause like, yeah, dude's gonna like they're gonna like let you earn Joker multiple times. Like I'm sure he's not gonna be a permanent thing you can get, but like even in the story, he is definitely like Joker is like kind of treated as this almost like holier than thou or like crazy special like Phantom Idol that exists. But by the way, the Phantom Idol thing, I will say, it is a brilliant bit of how can we include all the Phantom Thieves before you've unlocked them in the story without it just seeming crazily rushed. I think that's a smart system. I don't think everyone's going to agree with it, but I think the way that they handled it was pretty smart, all things considered. Um, the polls have been fine. I haven't gotten anything crazy. The game does not feel very aggressive in terms of how much it makes you want to spend money. Where I'm at for gameplay, I've been able to level everything up at a very natural pace. Nothing seems too loot driven. Even the fact that, like, when I finally unlocked weapons, I was surprised that the weapons are also done through loot boxes, but you can still buy them. You can still save up and just buy the weapon you need or trade other redundant weapons for 4 or 5 star equipment out there. And I think stuff like that has not felt predatory at all, which is a really, really nice surprise. Other things I want to give a shout out to, the original music has been nice. There is still way more old music than new, but the new music is complimentary enough that it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, and everything I've heard that I've recognized has been very, very good. The system, in terms of how the gameplay is, it is definitely a more simple press turn Persona 5 battle system. I think my only kind of like stipulation with it is like I think the battle system works great for mobile. I think the HUD sucks. And I don't know if this is just because of the size screen that I'm playing on. I feel like all the icons are too small. Like every time I know where to press stuff, I know where things are, and it is showing a lot of information, but I feel like why are the enemy health bars and SP bars so small? Why, if we're only allowed to have three attack skills, why are all these like taking up so little real estate when the screen is not like it's constantly being flashy? And like I think the game looks really, really good, but I'm gonna be honest, the all-out attacks have just about as much flair and polish put behind them as the final attacks do. Like some final attacks are fine, other ones are whatever. But like if you compare it to like an ultimate or like a finisher attack in a Honkai Star Rail, I think the production value in Honkai still easily wipes the floor with Persona 5X, and even something like Showtime attacks. I think the Showtime attacks in P5R have better production value, and Theurgy attacks too have way better production value than all the finishers I've seen in P5X so far. Now, that being said, Blackwing Studio really has to be commended on the things they have added in. I think how flexible it is, how much customization there is really, really interesting. They're doing a lot of stuff in P5X that ironically I could see them still not doing in Persona 6, even something as simple as just being like, okay, here's how we're going to handle dungeons. Here's how you're going to handle your free time. Here's how you're going to be messaging people. Stuff like that, I'll be really curious to see how the game grows, how the game evolves from what I already know about the Asian release, but it's definitely got its hooks in me. I don't know. I think a good litmus test for this game is going to be, do I keep logging in when I'm all caught up on story content? And will this game's updates be enough to bring me back in? I will say, the new characters, seeing them and unlocking them is definitely more interesting than unlocking the Phantom Thieves from P5 because like one of the big like beginner banners was like along with getting Joker, you can get Joker on Morgana or Ryuji. And I'm like, I don't want any of them. Like I've been playing as these fucking dudes for like 9 years. I want the new people. Like give me the Chinese girl. Like why wouldn't I want to play as all the new people? So ironically, I'm probably one of the only people out there who are. I am a Persona fan, but I'm like, yeah, I don't want to play as the OG Phantom Thieves. I want to play as the new Phantom Thieves. I want to see how these characters play, how they act, and all the ones I have played, I've unlocked about 10 so far. They all are very visually different, have very different gameplay styles, and thankfully do not just feel like carbon copies. Like you compare something like Yusuke with his ice abilities versus the girl that you're given in the beginning of the game with ice powers are just completely differently handled. I will say, shout out to how the baton pass system works. I think that's a really nice, interesting way of if you're gonna pass it to another character to abuse a weakness, just do the weakness. Like if you already know why I'm passing it to this character, just skip that extra step, make that go a little bit faster. I'm all here for it. Last thing I want to say, and only because I somehow forgot that the first collab that this game did was with Persona 5, because like when I unlocked that, I was like, "Oh, you've unlocked the collaboration event billboard. Go into it, and you can start the special collaboration story." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Let's see." I forgot. Like, what's the like we have a month-long story arc about Persona 5X crossing over with fucking Persona 5, and I'm just here to take it seriously. Now, to be fair, I've only done 3 chapters in the story so far, and it will take a month to unlock. But like, That versus the main story, I'll take Subway Slammer all day. All day, dude. I do not need to see how Ryuji thinks the owl is like a bandicoot or something like that. Like it is the bar for that dialogue is so low. Oh, also I can't believe I haven't mentioned this yet. The story, I'm just gonna say this right now, I think is fine. I genuinely think because it is Japanese only, that is why I'm not as hooked. But I will say from a production standpoint, goddamn, the beginning of this game has so much voice acting, if not all of it voice acted in the beginning. You do get to a point where eventually you do get a lot of text only segments, but like even the collaboration stuff was all voice acted for the cutscenes. I was like, man, when the hell couldn't like why couldn't Persona 5 have this much voice acting? Like the mobile game has more voice acting than the console game. It's insane. And a lot of people have been asking for this. I will say this, if they had had the foresight to launch this not only on phones and PC, if they had launched this on like PlayStation and Switch and Xbox, it would be over. Like, yes, there's other gotcha games like this, but like again, 7+ million copies of just Persona 5 Royal. Oh hi, here's now more of that, but free with gotcha mechanics would be so incredibly interesting to see how that sells. Now, let's go to. I'm on the iPhone store. Let's go to top free games. I'm curious where it is still at. Okay, so in the last week, it's gone from number one down to 13, which is still pretty good. You've got your normal stuff. Ironically, it is one spot away from Subway Surfers, which would have just been so funny. And then you got your other ones like all the matching games, Roblox, Fortnite, all that stuff's already up there. I think it's doing fine for stuff like that. I mean, you look at the charting store for it. I mean, I should keep going. I wonder how far it is from stuff like Genshin Impact and Honkai. Like if we go to top free games, where is Genshin Impact at? Or like what is the next Hoyoverse game that pops up? Like Pokemon Go is 46. Obviously Pokemon Go has had a long fallout. The horse racing girl game, that's 63. Dang bro, where are the Hoyo games at? I mean, I know these games are making money. It's not like I have to worry about it, but yeah, I'm at like 100 and they're not there. It's weird. All right, but yes, Persona 5X still doing pretty good. I would say definitely worth checking out. Like if you are even remotely an Atlus fan, whether you love SMT or only love Persona 5, like the fact that this is free and has so much story and is so unpredatory in its sales tactics outside of the occasional like you do get there was one weird back to back where it was like after I pulled my first 5 star they were like, do you want to spend $5 and get another 5 star Ryuji, or like do you want to spend $24 and get on right now? Like they've done that like twice, but all it is just me clicking X. I'm like, no, I'm good. No, I don't need it. Don't worry about me. Like that stuff's been fine. Like I've seen worse and more predatory things in games. It's not that abusive. Everything loads pretty fast. The game, like I said, looks really nice. I can't recommend it enough. I think if it had an English dub and or was on consoles, I would be dedicating a lot more time to it. But for Atlus's and Sega's first attempt at doing something like a big gotcha game, I hope it does well for them. Like obviously I don't want this to like take over and be their main moneymaker thing, but I think in terms of turning Persona 5 into a live service game, there were way, way worse outcomes than P5X. Like, a jokey story with a solid gameplay with a kind of shitty UI being my big takeaway, and I'm still playing this game on the daily a week later, go for it. I think the biggest testament to this game, I will say, will I spend any money in the first month? That's the interesting one because I've seen a couple of my friends spend like $5 to $20 for a couple of extra like pulls, just like, oh hey, I want to get ahead or I want to try and get some extra characters. Like I get stuff like that. I'm so Mr. Frugal with any like gotcha free to play stuff like this unless I really get hooked on the gameplay and I'm playing it a bunch. So that'll be the first interesting one. Like I'll be curious about how at the end of July how I'm looking. Am I still playing this game and have I opened my wallet at all for this game? All right. We're going to start wrapping up. I do want to give a quick shout out. I did open a new channel in the Discord. By the way, SMTN does have a Discord that we have a P5X corner. If you do want to talk about the game, obviously you can do it in general as always, but if you just want to like share or look at what other people's polls are, we added a little whaling channel and you can post your stuff there. I've got some questions though. I want to answer everybody's questions before I get out of here, but I am going to speed through these because we are going way longer than I thought I would, as we are now entering questions at the hour mark. So we've got Alon Games who says, "Where's SMT4 and Apocalypse ports, and/or why have they not been ported with the dancing games to Steam and other consoles?" I get asked about 4 a lot. Dancing, I appreciate you for asking. I never get asked about dancing. Dancing was one of those games that P4D sold so well, and that was during their Sony exclusivity period where the game at least made sense to make a sequel and port those to PS Vita and PS4. Those games undersold so much that it kind of scared Atlus away from wanting to do anything else. I know that they have been curious about doing it, but because of a lot of the music licensing and negative reception of those games, those are really low on the porting ones. Even though, ironically, I think if you put a combo package of all 3 of those games and all of their DLC and even sold that for like 50, $60, people would buy that. Like that's over 100 great songs, including all the DLC. But dancing, I would say, don't hold your breath. 4 and Apocalypse are just rough. 3DS remasters are tough to do, especially when the game is in 3D, especially when a game uses a lot of 3DS specific stuff with the menus, and it gets extra rough when it's a game that like has a lot of usage of 2D pixel art and also 3D model rendering. So not an impossible port, but compared to all the PS2 games they still have left to port, obviously something like DDS is going to be coming way before a port of SMT4, which I know a bunch of people are bummed to hear. Decimo TDG says, "Do you think P5X or its story was needed? Feels like Atlus has milked and done everything they can with the P5 series at this point." I would say, was it needed? No. A live service Persona 5 game was needed. I think financially it made so much sense, and to appease the stockholders, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you do this? You have another company willing to do this for you. You're going to make a ton of money, and you're reusing so many assets. Obviously, there's a bunch of new assets, but like they're like the Thieves' Den is literally just the Thieves' Den lifted from P5R. It is hilarious. So it is a game that has a lower entry due to the amount of asset reusage, but can easily kind of be updated over time and has hooks for more things like crossing over with Persona 3 Reload, and hopefully we do see with the other Persona 5 games in the future. And in terms of the milking, again, I'm just going to go back to it. Over 10 million copies of Persona 5 everything. 10 million is nothing to... Burnt Toast 2200 says, "When do you think the P5X English dub will be? Console release ever? And I highly doubt they would ever release a Persona game without an English dub, with some exceptions like P5 Strikers." So, I'm going to break down your questions really quick. When do we think a dub will come? I will say if this game can profit in the top 10 best-selling games, or at least most profitable games by the end of the year, like if they make more money on this game than any other game they released this year, like for their next year financial reports, we'll see them add an English dub back in. I think, though, especially with all the stuff that was happening during production and now, they're like, listen, an English dub is something a lot of our fans want, more so, I would almost say, than some of the Hoyo stuff, just because of like how Atlus fans are with our expectations of production values. But with all the different parties involved, ranging from Blackwing, Perfect World, and Atlus Japan, and the split development time between the Asian version and the worldwide version, And even though, like I said, the worldwide version still isn't even out worldwide yet. There are other countries it still has to come to. I think they want to try and get caught up a little bit closer. I would say if this game gets to a point where we are caught up and all versions are getting new content at the same pace and there's no English dub, then you're never going to get it. But until that time comes, if you don't hear anything, I would say as long as this game is profitable, there is still a chance that they will add it back in. It will just be very expensive because there is so much voice acting. Let's see. Console release. They have said they're open to it, but much like Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, I will believe it when I see it. Much like the fucking Switch 1 version of Genshin Impact that was announced 9,000 years ago, I will believe it when I see it. What is the most favorite new Demon or Persona in Raidou Remastered? I haven't seen that many, so I'm going to give a very boring answer, but this is just because I love this demon specifically so much. I love Idun. I love that Idun is there, so I am I am just happy that Idun Love is there, and she's one of the free SMT5 demons. We don't have to pay for her like all the other dumb ones. But let's see our last bit of questions. Crazy Sloth says, in 15 years, do you think we could ever see a remake or remaster of P5X without the gotcha? Honestly, with how story heavy this is, I think making a full priced, non monetized version of this game would be a lot easier said than done. So, like, obviously, not happening anytime soon. A lot more feasible than you might think. Next question, who is by TQMPNJRP, says, do you think P5X has had enough content to stand among other gacha games? I will say, in the like upper echelon of obviously the big dogs or the Hoyoverse games, this is definitely up there. Like this is not like a half-assed attempt. Like they have put a lot of time and money and production into this, and it really shows. As someone who watches a lot of games, like even the non-Hoyo stuff, like the Wuthering Waves and other things out there, this one really, really stands up there. And I'm not just saying that as an Atlus fan. Suma says, is it possible to enjoy P5X as a single player game or are the gacha elements constantly in your face? I'm playing this as the most stingy free to play player ever of all time for gacha stuff. I am enjoying this like it is just straight up a brand new Persona 5 game. Just happens to be on my phone and could not be any happier with it. Mostly from the asking price of it, but still, that all being said, like my expectations were low and they were very, very blown out of the water. Like they did such a good job. I was very, very happy with all that. That being said, that is the end of the show. Thank you everybody for your questions. Hopefully you didn't mind my ramblings for myself for about an hour or too much. I'm going to be quick with the outros. All the links will be in the show notes below. I am dangerously close to getting to 7,000 subscribers on YouTube. As of this recording, I am 58 away. I have been at 6K for more years than I would like to admit. I would love to keep this growth and momentum going. If you are listening to this and you mostly listen on iTunes, Spotify, Patreon, whatever, and are not subscribed somehow, please consider subscribing. It really does help. I want to do a fun giveaway at 7K. I figured it's 7K, 7th month of the year, assuming assuming the momentum doesn't completely fall off for the rest of the month. But if we can get to 7K by at the end of July, I would like to do a fun little celebration, either giveaway or stream or all the above. I'm brainstorming ideas as we speak, but like I mentioned, best place to support the show is patreon.com/SMTN. You can get the show early most of the time there. There are exclusive giveaways as well as the producer tier at $5 and up. You can support the show at $1 and up, and everything is always appreciated. But the $5 and up executive producers always get a shout out at the end of every episode. So big shout outs and thank you to all of our executive producers like Twist, John Massey, Jesus Coon, Crazy Sloth, Michael Wilson, Budweiser Tall Cans, Carlos Hernandez, Cross Rinrin, Winnie, Jagingus, Goro Cero, Solaire, Stephen Yip, and Patrick Dissart. Thank you all so much for the support, all the love, all of the fun stuff that you all help make happen. And if you can't support the show financially, like I said, outside of subscribing on YouTube, checking us out on iTunes, Facebook, join the Discord, Twitter, Bluesky, all that stuff, free reviews on the show. Spreading the word, telling your nerdy friends about us really, really does help. Anything like that, spreading all the word, spreading the love, spread all the things. I'm going to stop talking. Terrifically late. It's a Monday night. I'm very tired, but I can't wait to talk to you all next week. And I will be back next week with more news, probably less sales talk, and a lot more Raidou discussion. So I will see you all then. Have a great rest of your night, week, and enjoy your July 4th weekends. And I will see you later. Goodbye.